You seriously think you can stand up to me? The little new girl with big ambitions? Jackson laughed, looking at Emma's petite form standing in front of him in the center of the schoolyard. The crowd of students had formed a tight circle around them, the air ringing with tension. I don't think so, Jackson. I know, Emma replied quietly, her voice almost a whisper, but every word carried in the ringing silence. Jackson stepped forward, his massive frame looming over the girl, his fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. Then let's see what you're capable of, he growled and swung. What happened next left everyone in the room holding their breath. Emma's hands shot out so fast that no one had time to notice the movement. A second later, the 6-foot-tall Jackson was lying on the ground, gasping for breath and clutching his throat, while the petite newcomer stood over him with a look of cold determination on her face. The first rule of combat is never underestimate your opponent, she said, and a murmur of surprise and shock ran through the crowd. The most interesting part is coming. Stay with us to find out how it all ends. In the meantime, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't lose it. On a typical Monday, Riverside High School was buzzing like a beehive. Students crowded the hallways, loudly discussing the past weekend, sharing the latest gossip, and preparing for the new week of school. No one paid much attention to the skinny girl shuffling uncertainly outside the principal's office. Emma Thornton, a 15-year-old of average height with brown hair pulled back into a loose ponytail, eyed her new school cautiously. She had just moved to Riverside from San Diego after her mother accepted a new position at a local law firm. Emma, come in. Principal Montgomery, a tall man with graying dark hair and kind eyes behind his glasses, invited her. Welcome to our school. I'm sure you'll like it here. Emma nodded silently, clutching the straps of her backpack. At her previous school, she had been a star, but not because of her looks or popularity. Emma was a junior state champion in mixed martial arts. 3 years of grueling training at one of San Diego's top fight clubs had turned her into a martial artist who was dangerous even to adult opponents. But here in Riverside, no one knew about it. At her mother's insistence, they decided to start over with a clean slate. No mention of her athletic achievements. No unnecessary attention. Her mother believed it would help Emma fit in better and make normal friends, not just those who admired her athletic achievements. Here's your schedule and a map of the school. The principal handed her several sheets of paper. Your first lesson is English literature in room 212. Hannah, he turned to the girl sitting at the next table, please take Emma to class. Hannah Rodriguez, a short girl with olive skin and black hair, pulled back into a neat bun, smiled welcomingly. Of course, Mr. Montgomery. Come, Emma, I'll show you the way. They went out into the corridor, which by this time had already begun to empty. The bell had rung, and the students were hurrying to class. Don't mind the fuss, Hannah said. The first few days are always tough, but then you get used to it. Where are you from? San Diego, Emma said quietly, trying to appear as inconspicuous as possible. In her usual school uniform of plain jeans and a white blouse, she looked completely ordinary. There was no sign that this was a girl who could knock out a man twice her weight with one punch. Oh, great. It must be great there. Beaches, surfing. Hannah smiled. And here, well, it's nice here too, but there's less entertainment. They approached the literature room. Hannah knocked on the door and opened it slightly. Miss Parker, sorry I'm late. This is Emma Thornton. She transferred to us today. The teacher, a middle-aged woman with short blonde hair, nodded pleasantly. Come in, girls. Emma, welcome. Sit down wherever there's a free seat. The only empty seat was in the far corner of the classroom, next to the window. Emma walked there quietly, trying not to attract attention. But of course, all eyes were on her. The new girl always attracts interest. The lesson passed relatively calmly. Emma tried not to stand out, answered only when asked, and then in a quiet, almost inaudible voice. After the bell rang, she slowly gathered her things, deliberately delaying so as not to go out into the hallway with a crowd of classmates. How was your first lesson? Hannah asked, waiting for her at the door. I can show you where the cafeteria is if you want. Thank you. That would be great. Emma nodded gratefully. They walked out into the corridor, which was already filling up with students hurrying to break. Be careful, Hannah said suddenly, backing up against the wall and pulling Emma with her. It's best not to get in their way. A group of guys were walking down the hallway, tall, athletically built, with self-confident grins on their faces. In front was a fair-haired guy with piercing blue eyes, wearing a school football team jacket. Behind him were two, a dark-skinned, muscular guy with a short haircut and a skinny, brown-haired guy with glasses. Who is it? Emma asked quietly, although she already guessed from the way the other students parted for them. Jackson Miller, the captain of the football team, and his friends Tyler Ramirez and Mike Dawson, Hannah whispered. They're the bosses here. It's best to stay away from them, especially Jackson. He's not the nicest guy. Emma nodded silently, watching the trio. She'd met guys like that at every school, self-assured, used to impunity, thinking they were the center of the universe. At her previous school, such individuals would quickly learn of her athletic achievements and prefer not to mess with her. But here, the next 2 days were filled with tension. Jackson and his friends seemed to be hunting Emma. The new girl seemed like the perfect target, quiet, friendless, and clearly unsure of herself. None of her classmates stood up for her. Everyone was afraid of getting into trouble with Miller's group. Even the class teacher, Maria Sergeyevna, a woman of pre-retirement age with a perpetually tired face, preferred not to notice what was happening, considering it to be ordinary teenage squabbles. In the cafeteria, Mike would accidentally spill juice on Emma's notebooks. In the locker room before gym, Tyler would hide her sneakers, which meant she had to listen to the teacher's lectures. But the worst part was in the school chat, where Jackson added Emma to inform her about homework. Every comment she made was met with a barrage of ridicule. They started calling her California Carrion in Pale Herring. Someone even made a meme with her photo from her electronic diary, superimposing a fish skeleton on it. Emma tried not to show how much pain she was in. Every night she would come home, lock herself in her room, and practice hitting a small punching bag she hung in her closet. It helped her release her negative emotions. Just get through it, she told herself. They'll soon find a new victim. But instead, the bullying only got worse. I see you already got a greeting card from Jackson, a voice said next to her. Emma turned around to see a tall guy with dark hair and a friendly smile. Is this from him? She asked, tearing the note off and crumpling it. Most likely. I'm Ryan Chen, by the way. I'm sitting with you in chemistry. Emma Thornton, she smiled weakly. But you probably already know. The whole school knows, Ryan nodded. News travels fast in Riverside. Don't take this note to heart. Jackson is just marking his territory, like a primitive animal. Unfortunately, we have our own food chain at school, and he's at the top. And you? Emma asked, slamming the locker shut. I'm somewhere in the middle, Ryan chuckled. High enough to not be a constant target, but not high enough to stand up to Jackson. Honestly, no one here can stand up to him. I see. Emma slung her backpack over her shoulder. Thanks for the information. You're welcome. And, Ryan lowered his voice, if you need help or just company over lunch, I usually sit with some friends by the window. You're welcome to join me. Thank you, I'll keep that in mind, Emma said sincerely. They walked out into the schoolyard together. It was a sunny day, and many students were in no hurry to leave, enjoying the good weather. Are your parents taking your car? Ryan asked. I'll walk, Emma answered. We live nearby on Oak Street. Oh, it's in my area. I'm on foot too. We can walk together. He was interrupted by a loud cry. Hey, Chen, are you hitting on the new girl already? Jackson was approaching them with his usual companions, Tyler and Mike. All three looked smug, as if they were looking forward to some fun. We're just talking, Miller, Ryan replied calmly, though Emma noticed how tense he was. Oh, really? Jackson came closer and stood between them. I think you're meddling where it's none of your business. California is my territory. I noticed it first. I'm not anyone's territory, Emma said suddenly, and everyone looked at her in surprise. Her voice sounded firmer than before. And I decide who I associate with. There was a moment of silence. Jackson looked as if he couldn't believe he had been contradicted. Oh, brave little one, he finally said, a dangerous edge to his voice. I like that. But you should know how things work around here before you open your mouth. He took a step toward her, clearly intending to intimidate her with his height and bulk. Emma didn't back down. Something in her posture changed, almost imperceptibly to a layman. But any fighter would instantly recognize the readiness for a fight. You see, California, in this school, I decide who hangs out with who, Jackson continued, oblivious to the change. And I've decided that you hang out with me, and Chen and his nerds can find another girl. Jackson, stop it, Ryan interjected. You're being an idiot. Shut up, Chen, Jackson snapped, turning on him sharply. One more word and you'll regret it. Taking advantage of the moment, Tyler suddenly shoved Emma from behind, aiming for the small of her back. It was a sneaky, unsportsmanlike move, designed to knock her down and humiliate her. For an ordinary girl, such a push would have resulted in a fall and possibly injury. But Emma was no ordinary girl. Her body, accustomed to combat situations, responded instantly. She bent her knees slightly, absorbing the impact, then straightened and turned with the grace of a professional fighter. What the? Tyler looked stunned. He clearly expected to see the girl on the ground, not standing in front of him with cold fury in her eyes. Never touch me again, Emma said clearly, looking him straight in the eyes. The schoolyard became quiet. The few dozen students who were still there turned in their direction, sensing the tension. Wow, we got a fighter here, Jackson laughed, but there was something forced in his laughter. Tyler, I don't think you tried hard enough. Maybe you could try again? Tyler looked uncertainly at Emma, then at Jackson. Something about the girl's posture made him wary, too confident, too collected for a scared newcomer. Emma, let's get out of here. Ryan tried to take her hand, but she gently pulled away. It's okay, Ryan, she said, keeping her eyes on Jackson. I just want to clear a few things up front. Jackson chuckled and stepped forward, invading her personal space. And what points do you want to clarify, California? That I'm not afraid of you, Emma answered simply, and that your rules don't apply to me. The smile slipped from Jackson's face. A dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. Everyone is afraid of me, he said slowly, and you will learn too. He grabbed her shoulder sharply, intending to shake her or push her away. It was his fatal mistake. The next moment, Emma's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. A simple but effective hold, learned in the first months of training. For an untrained person, the grip was painful, and Jackson instinctively loosened his grip. Let me go, Emma said quietly, looking him straight in the eyes. Now! A circle of spectators formed around them. The students whispered, not believing their eyes. No one had ever confronted Jackson Miller so openly. You'll regret this, Jackson hissed, pulling his hand away. You'll regret it very much. He took a step back, rubbing his wrist, his face a mixture of pain, surprise, and rage. It's not over yet, California, he snapped. Tomorrow after school on the playground, we'll see if you're brave one-on-one. With that, he turned and walked away, gesturing for Tyler and Mike to follow him. They did, not without some surprised glances in Emma's direction. As soon as the trio were out of sight, a flurry of comments and questions erupted around Emma and Ryan. Are you crazy? Ryan looked at her with a mixture of admiration and horror. No one ever stands up to Jackson. How did you do that? Hannah asked as she ran up. I saw you block his hand. That was awesome, exclaimed a guy from the crowd. Jackson will destroy you, warned another. He doesn't forgive that. Emma stared in the direction Jackson had gone, her face calm, but inside a storm was raging. She had come here to start a new life, to be a normal girl. But apparently some things never change, no matter where you are. There will always be someone who feels entitled to bully others. Emma, you can't come to meet him tomorrow, Ryan insisted. He's a football player. He's twice as heavy as you. Don't worry, Ryan, Emma finally turned to him. I know what I'm doing. But I can handle it, she snapped, and something in her voice made him shut up. Let's go home, it's late. They walked in silence towards Oak Street. Ryan tried to start a conversation several times, but Emma responded in monosyllables, lost in her thoughts. When they reached the crossroads where their paths diverged, Ryan finally made up his mind. Emma, please be careful. Jackson is not the kind of person you want to mess with. Emma looked at him and smiled for the first time on the entire journey. A little sadly, but determinedly. Inorim. You know, Ryan, sometimes these are the kind of people you have to mess with. Otherwise, they'll never stop. With that, she turned towards her house, leaving Ryan standing at the intersection with a worried expression on his face. Emma's mother, Sarah Thornton, was waiting for her at home. She was an elegant woman with the same brown hair as her daughter, but with gray streaks. She worked as a corporate lawyer and had recently received a job offer at a local firm, which was the reason for their move. How was your first day? She asked as Emma walked into the kitchen. Did you meet anyone? It's fine, Emma shrugged, not wanting to talk about the conflict. I met a few guys. They're nice. That's good, Sarah smiled. I'm so glad you're starting a new life here. Without all that, well, you know. No fighting background, she wanted to say. No training to the point of exhaustion. No bumps and bruises. No reputation as the girl killer, as some parents at their old school had called Emma. Yes, Mom, Emma forced a smile. Everything will be fine. After dinner, she went up to her room, which was modest and not yet fully unpacked. In the corner was a large duffel bag, which she opened as soon as she closed the door. Inside were boxing gloves, shin guards, a mouth guard, and other fighting gear. Emma took out her gloves and ran her fingers over the worn leather. 3 years is a long time for an athlete. 3 years of daily training, fighting, winning and losing. 3 years of building character and skills that can never be forgotten or discarded. She walked up to the mirror and looked at her reflection. A thin girl, considered weak by many because of her physique. But under the ordinary school clothes, there were muscles trained to perfection. And behind the soft features, there was a steel will and discipline forged in battle. I promised my mother I would start a new life, Emma thought. But I didn't promise to be a victim. I will never be a victim. She carefully put the gloves back in her bag. Tomorrow she had a fight ahead of her. Not the kind she was used to in the ring, with rules and referees. This would be a fight for respect, for the right to be herself in a new school. And she was not going to lose. That night, Emma couldn't sleep for a long time. She looked at the ceiling and remembered the words of her first coach. A real fighter doesn't look for a fight, but never runs away from one. Well, tomorrow she will prove that she is a real fighter. The next day at Riverside High School began with whispers and sidelong glances. News of the previous day's confrontation had spread like wildfire. As Emma walked into the school hallway, the conversations died down, then resumed with renewed vigor. It's her, the students whispered. The new girl who dared to stand up to Jackson. They say she broke his arm with one movement. I heard she practices some kind of martial arts. Yes, but Jackson will still smear her on the wall after class. Emma walked with her head held high, ignoring the whispers. She headed straight to her locker where a worried Hannah was waiting for her. Emma, the whole school is talking about what happened yesterday, she exclaimed. And what will happen today? Are you seriously going to meet Jackson? I'm not going to run from bullies, Hannah, Emma replied calmly, opening her locker. If I do that now, they'll never leave me alone. But Jackson, he's dangerous. Last year, he sent a guy from a parallel class to the hospital just because he accidentally spilled juice on him in the cafeteria. Emma closed the locker and looked at Hannah. Then it's time for someone to teach him some manners. You don't understand, Hannah grabbed her arm. This isn't just a school fight. Jackson's been playing football since he was a kid. He's strong and ruthless. And his dad is the town sheriff. He gets away with everything. This new information gave Emma pause. She wasn't afraid of Jackson with her training. She could handle an opponent twice her size. But a conflict with the sheriff could cause problems not only for her, but for her mother as well. Thank you for the warning, she said softly. But I still can't just give in. It's not in my nature. Hannah wanted to add something, but at that moment the bell rang for class. The entire day passed in a strange atmosphere of anticipation. The teachers seemed to sense the unusual tension among the students, but they wrote it off as the usual teenage drama. In class, Emma tried to concentrate, but her thoughts kept returning to the upcoming confrontation. At lunch, Ryan sat down next to her, his face expressing extreme concern. I hear you're still going to see Jackson, he said without preamble. Emma, this is crazy. Why are you so worried, Ryan? She asked, looking at him carefully. We've only known each other for a day. Because, he hesitated, because I've seen what Jackson does to those who cross him, and I don't want that to happen to you. That's kind of you, Emma thanked him sincerely. But I have to do it, not just for myself, but for everyone else. Someone has to show him that he can be stopped. Ryan looked at her with surprise and disbelief. You talk like you know what you're doing, like you have a plan. Emma smiled. For the first time that day, it was a real smile. Maybe there is. Across the dining room, Jackson and his gang were loudly discussing the upcoming showdown. Jackson was bragging about how he was going to teach that California upstart a lesson, and Tyler and Mike were echoing him, occasionally casting mocking glances in Emma's direction. See how confident they are, Ryan said bitterly. Jackson has never lost a fight. Never. There's always a first time, Emma replied quietly, and something in her voice made Ryan flinch. After lunch, Emma ran into Jackson in the hallway. He deliberately blocked her path, spreading his legs wide and crossing his arms over his chest. Still not changed your mind, California? He asked loudly, attracting the attention of everyone around him. It's not too late to apologize and admit that you've gone too far. Emma stopped a few steps away from him, calm and collected. No, Jackson, I haven't changed my mind. We'll meet after school as we agreed. Your courage borders on stupidity, he grinned. But I like it. It will be more fun to break you. Or you, she retorted. And the hallway became so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. Jackson was momentarily speechless, not expecting such impudence. Then his face contorted with anger. After the sixth lesson, sports ground, don't be late. He turned abruptly and walked away. Tyler and Mike following him, not forgetting to give Emma threatening looks. As soon as they disappeared around the corner, the corridor exploded with whispers and comments. Did she really say that? Jackson is furious. He will destroy her. Ashun, someone film this with a phone. This is going to be epic. Ryan walked up to Emma, his face filled with extreme concern. Do you realize what you just did? You basically declared war on the most dangerous guy in school. No, Emma answered calmly. I simply accepted his challenge. There is a difference. The last lessons dragged on painfully long. Emma barely listened to the teachers, lost in her thoughts. She was thinking about strategy. She had to find a balance, to show Jackson that she was not to be trifled with, but not to reveal her fighting skills completely. After all, she had promised her mother to start a new life. During her last lesson, physics, Hannah sat down next to her. Emma, I want to tell you something, she whispered as the teacher wrote formulas on the board. About Jackson. Emma raised an eyebrow questioningly. He dated my older sister, Maria, last year. It was horrible. It seemed fine at first, but then he started controlling her every move, getting jealous for no reason. And when she tried to break up with him, Hannah swallowed. He threatened her, and he's a master manipulator. When Maria finally came clean to her parents in school, it somehow backfired on her. Jackson convinced everyone she'd made it up out of revenge because he dumped her. His dad's the sheriff, remember? No one would take her side. We ended up transferring her to a different school. Emma listened silently, her face growing darker and darker. That's why I'm so worried about you, Hannah finished. Jackson isn't just a schoolyard bully. He's really dangerous, and it's not just his physical strength. Thank you for telling me, Emma said quietly, squeezing Hannah's hand. Now I understand even better why I have to do this. But I'll be careful, I promise. When the last bell rang, Emma was in no hurry to leave the classroom. She slowly gathered her things, took a deep breath, and exhaled several times, as she did before fights. It helped her to concentrate, to clear her mind of unnecessary thoughts. Stepping out into the hallway, she saw that the school was literally buzzing with excitement. Students were rushing to the sports ground so as not to miss the upcoming event. Many were pulling out their phones, getting ready to film. At her locker, Emma took off her school jacket, leaving her in a simple white blouse. She pulled her hair back into a tight ponytail to keep it out of the way during whatever happened. Emma! She turned around to see Ryan hurrying towards her. He looked out of breath, as if he had been running. You can still avoid this, he said, stopping next to her. Jackson's telling everyone he's going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget. He's really pissed. Okay, Emma replied calmly. Anger clouds my judgment. That gives me an advantage. Ryan looked at her with a mixture of surprise and admiration. Who are you, Emma Thornton? She smiled slightly. Just a girl who doesn't like hooligans. Shall we go? Together they walked out of the school building and towards the playground. Hannah joined them along the way, her face filled with extreme worry. Emma, please be careful, she begged. If anything goes wrong, I'll call the police right away. I don't think it'll help if his father is the sheriff, Emma noted. Then I'll call an ambulance, Hannah persisted. The sports field was already surrounded by a dense ring of spectators. It seemed like the entire school had gathered, from freshmen to seniors, and even a few teachers were watching from afar, pretending to be just passing by. Jackson stood in the center of the court, surrounded by his friends. He was stretching his shoulders and neck like a boxer before a fight. When he spotted Emma, he grinned widely. Here comes our star, he announced loudly. I thought you were running away. Emma walked silently through the crowd, which parted for her. She stopped a few meters from Jackson, calm and collected. I keep my word, she said simply, unlike some people. Wow, and some sarcasm too, Jackson feigned impression. Brave little thing. Well, let's lay down the rules. Rules? Emma raised an eyebrow. I thought you weren't one to play by the rules. A murmur ran through the crowd. Someone whistled softly. You're asking for trouble, California. Jackson's voice took on a dangerous edge. But okay, no rules. Just you and me. He motioned for his friends to step back and assumed a fighting stance. Clumsy, but aggressive. "One last chance to apologize," he offered. "On your knees, and maybe I'll be merciful." Emma shook her head slowly. "You know, Jackson, I'll give you a chance. One hit. You can hit me first." A surprised murmur ran through the crowd. Someone laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Are you serious?" Jackson looked surprised, then laughed. "You really are crazy. But if you insist." He took a step forward, swinging his arm to strike. Emma stood still, looking him straight in the eyes. It was the moment of truth. Jackson struck a hard, sweeping hook, designed to knock his opponent out cold. For an unprepared man, it could have resulted in a concussion. But Emma was not unprepared. At the last second, she twisted her body slightly, taking the blow on her shoulder and absorbing most of the force. Still, she felt pain. Jackson was a strong guy. But pain was an old friend, something she had long ago learned to cope with. The crowd gasped. No one expected the fragile newcomer to survive the footballer's punch. "My turn," Emma said quietly, and something in her voice made Jackson instinctively take a step back. What happened next was forever etched in the memories of everyone present. Emma moved like a professional fighter. Fast, precise, efficient. Her first blow, precise and measured, caught Jackson square in the solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping for breath, and Emma took advantage of that to sweep him, knocking the weight out from under him. Jackson fell to the ground, not understanding what was happening. Before he could react, Emma was there, and twisted his arm into a painful hold, causing him to cry out in pain. "What the? Let go!" he croaked, trying to break free. But Emma only increased the pressure. "The first rule is never pick a victim without knowing who it is," she said calmly so that everyone could hear. "I did MMA in San Diego for 3 years. I have a first junior rank and wins at regional competitions." She let go of him and straightened up. There was absolute silence all around. No one could believe their eyes. Tyler and Mike, having come to their senses, rushed to help their friend. But Emma was ready. She met Tyler with a precise blow to the jaw, sending him to the ground, and simply twisted Mike's arm, forcing him to fall to his knees with a painful groan. "The second rule," she continued in the same calm voice, "is that 3 against 1 is mean, no matter who you're going against." Letting go of Mike, who was whining in pain, Emma looked around at the shocked crowd. "And the last thing, I don't touch anyone first. But if someone decides that I'm an easy target, blame yourself." By this time, Jackson had risen to his feet, clutching his ribs and breathing heavily, his face twisted in pain and humiliation. You will regret this," he hissed. Your father is the sheriff, I know," Emma interrupted. "Tell him his son and 2 friends tried to attack the new girl, and she was just defending herself. I'm sure he'll like that story." Jackson stepped back, his face red with rage and shame. "It's not over yet," he said and limped away. Tyler and Mike followed, supporting each other. The crowd parted to let them pass, then closed around Emma again. The students' eyes showed surprise, admiration, and even fear. "It was unreal," Ryan breathed, breaking the silence first. "Just a little self-defense lesson," Emma shrugged, casually adjusting her blouse. "I hope it's been learned." But inside, she knew this was just the beginning. Jackson wasn't one to accept defeat easily, and his last words sounded like a promise of revenge. The news of what had happened on the playground spread like wildfire through Riverside. By evening, it seemed the entire town knew about the new girl who had taken down the school bully and his cronies. Emma walked home, accompanied by Ryan and Hannah, who peppered her with questions. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Hannah continued to marvel. "It was amazing." "I did mixed martial arts in San Diego," Emma explained. "Nothing special." "Nothing special?" Ryan looked at her with disbelief. "You just did what so many people in this school have dreamed of for years. Put Jackson in his place." "But I'm afraid you'll get into trouble now," Hannah added, her face growing concerned again. "Jackson isn't one to forgive humiliation." "I can handle it," Emma said confidently, although inside she was worried too. Not about herself, she could stand up for herself. But if Mom found out about this, if the school called the parents, or worse, if Jackson's dad got involved. "It was still cool," Ryan smiled at her. "You turned the entire school hierarchy upside down in one day." They reached a crossroads where their paths diverged. "See you tomorrow?" Hannah asked. "Of course," Emma nodded. And Hannah, Thank you for telling me about your sister. It helped me understand who I was dealing with. Hannah smiled sadly. Take care of yourself, Emma. Jackson could be dangerous. I know, Emma answered seriously. That's why I couldn't let him intimidate me. When Emma got home, her mother had not yet returned from work. Normally, this would have been a relief. She wouldn't have to explain the bruise on her shoulder from Jackson's punch. But today, Emma felt strangely uneasy. The events of the day were haunting her. She went up to her room and pulled out her phone. The screen was already filled with notifications texts from unfamiliar numbers, social media requests, even a few emails. It seemed like the entire school was suddenly interested in her. Scrolling through her messages, Emma came across a text message from an unknown number. You will regret today. No one humiliates Jackson Miller with impunity. Emma sighed and put her phone down. She had expected something like this. Jackson was clearly not the type to lose gracefully. The doorbell rang. Emma went downstairs and peered cautiously out the window next to the front door. A man in a sheriff's uniform stood on the threshold. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Had Jackson really complained to his father? So quickly? Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. Good evening, the uniformed man nodded politely. His badge read Sheriff R. Miller. You must be Emma Thornton? Yes, she tried to speak calmly. How can I help you, Sheriff? Can I come in? He asked. I'd like to talk to you about what happened at school today. Emma hesitated. On the one hand, it would be suspicious to refuse the sheriff. On the other, she didn't want to be alone with him. If he was like his son, my mother is not at home, she said. Perhaps you could come later when she comes back? Sheriff Miller looked at her carefully. His eyes, as blue as Jackson's, looked tired and guilty. I understand your concern, he said more gently. But I'm not here as Jackson's father. I'm here as an officer of the law. There's been a report of a fight at the school, and I'm obligated to investigate. I can talk to you on the porch if that makes you more comfortable. Emma relaxed a little. At least he hadn't stormed into the house with accusations. Okay. She walked out onto the porch, leaving the door ajar. What do you want to know? Tell me what happened. The sheriff took out a notebook. In your own words. Emma took a deep breath and began to tell her story about how Jackson and his friends had tried to bully her from day one, about the note in her locker, about Tyler pushing her, and finally about the events on the playground. She spoke honestly, without trying to make herself look better or to tarnish Jackson more than he deserved. The sheriff wrote, nodding occasionally. When she finished, he closed the notebook and looked at her with an expression Emma couldn't decipher. Thank you for your honesty, Emma, he said. I've already spoken to several witnesses and your story matches theirs, including the fact that you practice martial arts. I never hid it, Emma said firmly. I just didn't advertise it, and I only used force in self-defense. I know, the sheriff nodded, and that's important. The question is what to do next. Emma tensed. What do you mean? Sheriff Miller sighed and removed his cap, running a hand through his short graying hair. Look, Emma, I know my son. He's not an easy guy, and I know that's putting it mildly. Emma was silent, surprised by this confession. I've heard stories about his behavior at school, the sheriff continued. Many of them, I'm sure, never even reached me. Jackson is used to getting what he wants, and I'm afraid some of that is my fault. He looked at Emma with genuine regret. I wasn't always a good father. After his mother died, I lost it, and I let Jackson grow up thinking he could get away with anything because his dad was the sheriff. That was a mistake. Emma didn't know what to say. She certainly didn't expect this conversation. But today, the sheriff smiled weakly, you taught him a lesson I should have taught him long ago. A lesson about consequences, about not treating people like trash. So, I'm not in trouble? Emma asked cautiously. No, the sheriff shook his head. You were defending yourself, and you had every right to do so. The problem is, he hesitated. I'm not sure Jackson learned that lesson right. He came home furious, screaming about revenge, about making you regret it. Emma's heart sank. She had expected something like this, but to hear it from Jackson's father. I tried to talk to him, the sheriff continued, but he wouldn't listen. And I'm worried, not about him, but about you. Jackson can be impulsive and reckless when he's angry. What are you suggesting? Emma asked bluntly. Be careful, the sheriff said seriously. Don't go out alone, especially after dark. And if Jackson or his friends try to do anything, call me right away, directly. He handed her a business card with his personal number. Why are you helping me? Emma couldn't hide her surprise. He's your son. That's why, the sheriff said quietly. Because I love him, and I want him to be a better person, and to do that he needs to understand that his actions have consequences, even if it hurts. Emma nodded, accepting the card. At that moment, a car pulled up to the house. Mom had returned. What's going on? Sarah Thornton asked worriedly as she got out of her car and saw the sheriff standing on her porch. Emma, is everything okay? Good evening, Mrs. Thornton. The sheriff turned to her. I'm Sheriff Robert Miller, just doing a routine inquiry about a minor incident at the school. Nothing serious. An incident? Sarah looked at her daughter with concern. Emma, what happened? Mom, A group of boys tried to intimidate your daughter, the sheriff interjected. Emma defended herself using her self-defense skills. Quite impressive, I must say. Sarah turned pale. Emma, you promised. I know, Mom, Emma said quietly, but I didn't have a choice. Sheriff Miller put on his cap. I won't keep you any longer. Emma, remember what we talked about. Mrs. Thornton, he nodded in farewell. You have a wonderful daughter. You can be proud of her. With these words, he left, leaving Emma alone with her shocked mother. Let's go inside, Sarah said as soon as the sheriff drove away. And you can tell me everything, in detail. Emma spent the next half hour telling her mother about her first day at her new school meeting, Jackson and his friends, the note in her locker, the confrontation in the schoolyard, and finally the events on the playground. I didn't mean to fight, Mom, she finished. But if I hadn't fought back now, it would never have ended. You know how it is with bullies. Sarah sat silently, her face expressing a mixture of worry, disappointment, and, to Emma's surprise, pride. I know I asked you to start over, she finally said, to forget about the fights in the tournaments, to become an ordinary girl. But I never asked you to become a victim. She took her daughter by the hands. You did the right thing by defending yourself, but I'm afraid, Emma, this boy Jackson, if he's what you describe, and if his father is the sheriff. His father seems normal, Emma said. He seems to be on my side. Perhaps, Sarah said thoughtfully. But still, be careful. We don't know these people. I will, Emma promised. And Mom, I'm sorry I broke my promise. Sarah hugged her daughter. You didn't break the law. You defended yourself, and I'm proud of you for that. That night, Emma lay awake for a long time, wondering about the strange conversation with Sheriff Miller and what might come next. She was haunted by his words about Jackson, his rage and promises of revenge. What could this warning mean? And could she trust a man who had essentially admitted that he had made serious mistakes in raising his son? Eventually, fatigue took its toll, and Emma fell into a restless sleep. The next morning, she woke up to the sound of an incoming text message. Reaching for her phone, she saw a text from Hannah. Don't come to school. Jackson is telling everyone horrible things about you. Says he has proof. Emma frowned. Evidence of what? What could she have done to give Jackson dirt on her? Quickly getting ready, she went downstairs where her mother was preparing breakfast. Good morning, dear, Sarah smiled. How's your shoulder? It's fine, Emma replied absent-mindedly, showing her mother the message from Hannah. Mom, what does this mean? Sarah read the message, her face becoming worried. I don't know, Emma. Maybe he's just bluffing, trying to scare you. Maybe, Emma said uncertainly. But what if not? What if he really did find something? Do you have something that can be used against you? Sarah asked bluntly. Emma thought about it. She was quite well known in San Diego sports circles, participated in tournaments, gave interviews to local newspapers, but nothing scandalous, nothing that could seriously damage her reputation. I don't think so, she finally said, unless he wants to use my fighting background to make me look aggressive. But that's funny. Everyone saw that he attacked first. Then go to school with your head held high, Sarah said firmly. If you don't show up today, it will only confirm any accusations he makes in the eyes of others. Emma nodded, although she felt uneasy inside. Something about Hannah's message made her nervous. As Emma approached the school, she noticed that the students were gathering in groups, talking animatedly about something. When they saw her, the conversations died down, and everyone began to look in her direction with strange expressions, some with curiosity, some with condemnation, some with open hostility. Hannah and Ryan were waiting for her at the entrance, both with grim faces. Emma, you finally came. Hannah looked upset. I was hoping you'd stay home today. What's going on? Emma asked bluntly. What evidence is Jackson talking about? Ryan and Hannah looked at each other. He, he says he found information about you in San Diego, Ryan said slowly. He says you were expelled from your last school for assaulting a teacher, that you have anger management issues, and that you take steroids to build muscle. What? Emma couldn't believe her ears. This is a complete lie. We know, Hannah interrupted. But he's been showing everyone some screenshots of articles and social media posts. They look convincing. It's a fake, Emma said firmly. He or one of his friends must know how to edit images. Mike, most likely, Ryan nodded. He's at the computer club. He's good with graphic editors. But why? Emma still couldn't understand the scale of what was happening. Why such complications? He wants to destroy your reputation, Ryan said seriously, to make you look like a dangerous psychopath, to justify his defeat and turn the whole school against you. And it looks like he's succeeding, Hannah added quietly, gesturing toward the groups of students who were giving them unfriendly looks. Emma felt anger rising inside her. Physical intimidation was one thing. She could handle that. But slander, an attempt to defame her name, to make everyone think she was a monster. Where is he? She asked, and Hannah and Ryan exchanged glances again. Emma, I don't think it's time to... Where's Jackson? She repeated, her voice taking on a steely edge. In the cafeteria, Ryan said reluctantly. He had quite an audience there. But Emma, if you go there now, in this state, you'll only confirm what he said about his anger issues. Emma took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Ryan was right. She couldn't give Jackson what he wanted, proof of his lies. Okay, she said finally. I won't make a scene, but I'm not going to hide or run either. I'll go to class like usual. We're with you, Ryan said firmly. Yes, Hannah confirmed. We know he's lying. Emma smiled gratefully at them. At least she had real friends at this new school. Morning lessons were tense. Emma felt the gazes of her classmates, curious, judgmental, and sometimes downright hostile. The rumors spread by Jackson were clearly doing their job. During recess after third period, Kate Johnson, the captain of the cheerleading squad and one of the most popular girls in school, approached her. Hey, Thornton, she said loudly, attracting the attention of everyone in the hallway. Is it true you got kicked out of your last school for breaking your gym teacher's arm? Emma felt the color rise to her face. No, that's not true, she answered calmly. I didn't hurt anyone. It's all a lie. I think there's no smoke without fire, Kate chuckled. Jackson showed me messages from his friends in San Diego. They know everything about you. Jackson doesn't have any friends in San Diego, Emma said, trying to keep her voice level, even though she was seething with rage inside. He faked those messages. Yes? And why would he do that? Kate crossed her arms over her chest, clearly enjoying the situation. Because I embarrassed him in front of the whole school, Emma answered bluntly. And now he's taking revenge by trying to destroy my reputation with lies. I've known Jackson for 3 years, Kate shook her head. He wouldn't lie about something like that. And I've known you for 2 days, and in that time you've managed to start a fight and hurt 3 guys. So excuse me, but I'm inclined to believe him. With these words, she turned and walked away, leaving Emma standing in the middle of the corridor under the gaze of dozens of students. Don't pay attention, Ryan said quietly, appearing next to him. Kate's always been on Jackson's side. They dated last summer. It's not about her, Emma shook her head. It's about everyone believing this lie, and I don't know how to prove otherwise. Maybe you should talk to the principal, Hannah suggested. Explain the situation. What am I going to say? Emma chuckled bitterly. That a popular student is spreading lies about me? Without evidence, it will look like an attempt to shift the blame. They headed for the dining room. As soon as they entered, the conversation died down and all eyes turned to Emma. Jackson was sitting at a table in the far corner with his friends, grinning smugly. His face still bore the marks of the previous night's fight, a black eye and a cut on his cheekbone. Let's sit by the window, Ryan suggested, trying to pull Emma away from Jackson. They took their trays of food and found a free table. Emma tried to ignore the whispers and stares, but it was hard, especially when she could clearly hear snippets of conversation. They say she almost killed someone at her previous school. Or takes steroids, that's why she's so strong. A psychopath, she has a certificate. Suddenly, Jackson stood up and walked over to their table, followed by Tyler and Mike. Tyler had a large bruise on his cheekbone from where Emma had punched him the day before. Look who's here, Jackson said loudly, stopping next to their table. Our MMA star, the infamous Emma Thornton. What's up, psycho? Any more hurting tonight? Emma slowly looked up, maintaining an outward calm, although inside she was seething with rage. What do you want, Jackson? Just wanted to make sure everyone knew who they were dealing with. He glanced around the dining room. See that cute girl? Don't be fooled by her looks. In San Diego, she was known as Mad Emma. She sent two girls to the hospital at the tournament by intentionally using illegal moves. That's a lie, Emma said firmly, trying to control her voice. I've never broken any rules or hurt anyone. Yes? Jackson grinned and pulled out his phone. But the evidence says otherwise. He showed a screen that showed an article with a photo of Emma in the ring. The headline read, "Scandal at Junior Tournament. Athlete disqualified for dangerous holds." Emma glanced at the screen and immediately knew it was a fake. The photo was real, from one of her fights. But the article was fabricated. No such incident had ever happened. It's fake, she said calmly. You or your friends forged this article. Really? Jackson looked theatrically surprised. Then how did I get a real photo of you fighting? Emma froze. Really, where from? How could he have found her photos from the competition? The internet is a wonderful thing, Jackson continued, seeing her confusion. You can find out a lot about people there, especially about those who have participated in public events. He turned towards the dining room, raising his voice. This girl is dangerous. She is a trained fighter who does not control her aggression. Yesterday, she attacked me and my friends for no reason, just to prove her superiority. You're lying. Emma jumped to her feet, unable to contain herself any longer. You attacked first. You and your friends have been trying to intimidate me since day one. You left a threatening note in my locker. See? Jackson pointed at her, smiling triumphantly. That's uncontrolled aggression. I'm just showing everyone the truth about you, and you're ready to pounce on me. Emma realized that she had fallen into his trap. With her emotional reaction, she only confirmed his lie about her uncontrollable aggression. Emma, don't! Ryan put his hand on her shoulder. He's deliberately provoking you. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. You're right, Jackson, she said, surprising everyone with her calm. I am a trained fighter, and I can hold my own. But I never attack first, I don't break the rules, and I don't use my skills against those who are weaker. She glanced around the dining room, addressing everyone present. Think about it. If I were as aggressive and uncontrollable as he says, wouldn't I have put him in the hospital yesterday? Wouldn't I have broken his arm or leg? I could have. I have enough skills. But I didn't. I simply defended myself, using the minimum force necessary. Her words made many people think. The dining room became quiet. Besides, she added, looking directly at Jackson, if you're so afraid of me, why did you come here? Why are you provoking another confrontation? Jackson momentarily lost his confidence, but quickly pulled himself together. I'm not afraid of psychopaths, he hissed, and I won't let you scare the people of this school with your fighting tricks. With that, he gave Emma's tray a sharp push, sending her lunch to the floor. Oops, how awkward, he grinned. It was the moment of truth. The entire cafeteria held its breath, waiting for Emma to explode and attack Jackson, confirming all his accusations. Even Ryan and Hannah tensed, ready to hold their friend back. But Emma surprised everyone. She slowly dropped to one knee and began to pick up the spilled food, her movements calm and methodical. You know, Jackson, she said, not looking at him, real strength doesn't come from putting others down. And it doesn't come from spreading lies out of fear of appearing weak. She stood up, holding a tray with the remains of her dinner. True strength lies in the ability to control yourself, even when you most want to respond to provocation. Her words hung in the air, and many of the students began to exchange glances. Something changed in the atmosphere of the cafeteria. Mistrust and hostility were replaced by confusion and doubt. Jackson felt he was losing the initiative. Beautiful words, he muttered, but they don't change who you are. Dangerous, unbalanced. Hey, Jackson, a voice from the crowd suddenly interjected. It was Lisa Clark, a quiet girl from a parallel class. And your evidence, can I take a closer look? Jackson frowned. For what? I'm just curious, Lisa shrugged. If this is a real article, there should be signatures, a date, the name of the publication. Can I see it? Not now, Jackson snapped, putting the phone in his pocket. I still have things to do. Why not? Someone else asked. If it's true, what's stopping you from showing it? Nothing, it's just... Jackson began to back down. Look, I don't have to prove anything. Everything I said is true. And whether you believe it or not is up to you. He turned and walked quickly towards the exit, Tyler and Mike following him. As soon as they left, a lively discussion broke out in the cafeteria. Many students now doubted Jackson's words, especially after his reluctance to show the evidence in more detail. Lisa approached Emma's table. "I'm sorry I didn't intervene sooner," she said. "But I've known Jackson since kindergarten. He's always been a bully and a liar. And I thought—" "Thank you," Emma said sincerely. "You've been a great help." "That was clever," Ryan said after Lisa had left, getting him to show the evidence in more detail. Of course, he refused because anyone with a computer background would have known it was a fake. "And you're calm," Hannah added. "When he pushed the tray, everyone expected you to explode." "That's exactly what he wanted," Emma nodded, "but I won't give him that joy." The rest of the day passed in a strange atmosphere. Rumors continued to circulate, but now doubts were added to them. Many students who had previously been willing to take Jackson at his word now wondered why he had retreated so quickly when asked for evidence. After her last lesson, Emma stayed in the classroom to talk to the teacher about the material she had missed. When she came out into the hallway, it was almost empty. Most of the students had gone home. As Emma passed the toilets, she heard muffled voices and the sound of a blow. Instinctively, she stopped listening. "Speak!" It was Jackson's voice, angry and demanding. "Who made you doubt my words?" "Nobody," Lisa's frightened voice sounded. "I just thought—" The sound of another blow, this time accompanied by a quiet cry of pain. "Don't lie to me," Jackson snapped. "Did Thornton put you up to it? Did you conspire to humiliate me in front of the whole school?" Emma didn't hesitate for a second. She threw open the door to the girls' restroom and was met with a horrific scene. Jackson had Lisa pinned against the wall, one hand around her throat, while Tyler and Mike stood guard at the stalls. "Let her go," Emma's voice sounded like the crack of a whip. Jackson turned around, his face showing surprise, then glee. Well, she came herself. Convenient. He let go of Lisa, who slid down the wall, coughing and clutching her throat. "Lisa, go away," Emma ordered, not taking her eyes off Jackson. "Now." "She's not going anywhere." Jackson nodded to Tyler, who blocked the door. "We're having a reveal party here, Thornton." "Revealing what?" Emma stepped forward, placing herself between Jackson and Lisa. "Your lies? Your cowardice? That you beat up girls when you can't win a fair fight?" Jackson's face contorted with rage. You ruined everything. One day at school and you destroyed everything I've built up over the years. My reputation, my authority. "You ruined it all yourself," Emma replied calmly, "with your behavior, with your beating of the weak, with your belief that you are above the rules." "Shut up!" Jackson took a sharp step forward, his fist flaring. But this time Emma was ready. She blocked the blow and performed a quick sweep, sending Jackson to the floor. Without giving him time to recover, she twisted his arm behind his back, holding him in a painful hold. "Tyler, Mike," she looked at the two boys who stood there indecisively. "You have a choice. Either you let Lisa pass and let her go, or your friend will get a dislocated shoulder. Decide quickly." "Don't listen to her," Jackson shouted. "She's bluffing." Emma increased the pressure slightly and Jackson howled in pain. "I'm not bluffing," she said calmly. "I spent 3 years learning how to destroy joints. One wrong turn and your football career is over." Tyler and Mike exchanged glances. Then Mike stepped away from the door. "Lisa, go away," he said. "Quickly." Lisa, without waiting for a second invitation, jumped out of the toilet. "Traitors," Jackson growled. "I won't forget this." "Now you two," Emma looked at Tyler and Mike. "Go away. And if I hear about you helping Jackson bully anyone, especially girls, again, I won't be so merciful." "Fuck you," Tyler snapped, but Mike grabbed his arm. "Come on," he said insistently. "This is not our fight." They left, leaving Emma alone with Jackson. She let go of him and took a few steps back, ready for a possible attack. Jackson stood up slowly, rubbing his shoulder, his face twisted in pain and hatred. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "I swear you'll regret this." "Maybe," Emma answered calmly. "But not today. And you know what, Jackson? I'm not afraid of you, and no one else ever will be." With these words, she headed towards the door. "This isn't the end," Jackson said after her. "I still have some cards to play." Emma turned around, looking at him with a mixture of pity and weariness. "You don't understand, do you? It's already the end. Your tyranny in this school ended the moment people saw that you could be defeated, that you were not omnipotent, that you were just a scared boy who started to bully others. She walked out of the bathroom, leaving Jackson standing alone, a look of impotent rage on his face. In the hallway, not only Lisa was waiting for Emma, but also several other students, including Ryan and Hannah. They had clearly heard part of the conversation. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, looking at Lisa, whose neck was starting to show bruises from Jackson's fingers. "Yes," Lisa smiled weakly. "Thanks to you. He cornered me when I was leaving the classroom, said he'd teach me to keep my mouth shut." "We need to report this," Emma said firmly. "This isn't just schoolyard bullying anymore. This is assault, physical assault." "Are you sure?" Lisa asked doubtfully. "His father?" "I'll talk to his father," Emma said firmly. "He needs to know what his son is doing." They walked out of the school as a group, suddenly united by their shared experience. On the way, Emma pulled out her phone and dialed Sheriff Miller. "Sheriff Miller? This is Emma Thornton. I need to talk to you. It's about Jackson." "Yes, it's urgent." "No, I'm not hurt, but the other girl is. Can we meet now? In the park near the school?" "Okay, we'll wait." She hung up and turned to Lisa. "Are you ready to tell the sheriff what happened?" "I know it's hard, but it's important." Lisa hesitated, but then nodded decisively. "Yes. I'm tired of being afraid." 15 minutes later, Sheriff Miller arrived at the park, his face filled with concern as he saw the bruises on Lisa's neck. "What happened?" he asked, and Lisa, haltingly but firmly, told him about Jackson's attack. The sheriff listened in silence, his face growing darker. When Lisa finished, he sighed deeply. "Lisa, first of all, I want to apologize to you, as Jackson's father and as a representative of the law. What my son did is unforgivable." He took out a notebook and began writing down her statement, then took a photo of the marks on her neck. "I want you to know that today I am not acting as Jackson's father, but as the sheriff, and the law is the same for everyone, including my son." "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Jackson will have to answer for his actions," the sheriff said firmly. "At the very least, it's assault causing bodily harm, plus intimidation, slander." He turned to Emma. "I saw the evidence he showed at school. It's a gross fake. My son," he hesitated. "Jackson has anger management and failure issues. I've turned a blind eye to it for too long, thinking he'd grow out of it. But today, he crossed the line." "What are you going to do?" Hannah asked. "What you should have done a long time ago." The sheriff straightened up. "Jackson will be held accountable for his actions. No concessions, no excuses. And also," he looked at Emma, "I want to ask you for forgiveness, for the fact that my son spread lies about you, for trying to blacken your name." "You are not to blame for his actions," Emma said quietly. "Partly my fault," the sheriff shook his head. "I've turned a blind eye to his behavior for too long. But that ends today." He turned to Lisa. "You need to go to the hospital to officially record your injuries, and I'll need a statement from you and your parents. Are you ready?" Lisa nodded, her eyes filling with tears of relief. "Yes, I'm ready." "I'll go with her," Hannah volunteered. "We live next door. I know her parents." "Okay," the sheriff nodded. "I'll take you." Before leaving, he looked at Emma again. "Thank you for intervening, Emma. You did the right thing. And Jackson won't bother you again, I guarantee it." When the sheriff left with Lisa and Hannah, Emma and Ryan were left in the park. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, looking at Emma's thoughtful face. "Yes," she smiled weakly. It's been an intense day." "You're amazing," Ryan said suddenly. "You know that? Most people would just try to keep a low profile, especially when they're in a new school. But you didn't just stand up for yourself. You changed the whole school." Emma shook her head. "I didn't change anything. People themselves decided not to be afraid anymore." "Because of you," Ryan insisted. "You showed that even the worst bully is just human, that he can be defeated, that bullying and cruelty don't have to be tolerated." Emma thought about it. Maybe he was right. Maybe sometimes it only takes one person to start a change. "Let's go home," she said, getting up from the bench. "Mom's probably worried already." They walked toward Oak Street, talking about the day's events, about school, about the future. For the first time since moving in, Emma felt like Riverside could be a real home. The next day, the school was abuzz with news. Jackson Miller had been suspended and charged with assault. His father, Sheriff Miller, personally investigated and insisted on the harshest punishment. When Emma entered the school, The students no longer whispered disapprovingly behind her back. Now there was respect, gratitude, and even admiration in their eyes. Several students who had been Jackson's victims in the past came up to thank her. "Emma!" Lisa called out, running up the hallway. There were still bruises on her neck, but her eyes were shining. "I wanted to say thank you for yesterday. If it weren't for you—" "You're welcome," Emma smiled. "I'm glad you're okay." "More than," Lisa smiled back. "Sheriff Miller came to our house in person last night. He really cared about justice being served, even when it came to his own son." "He's a good man," Emma nodded. "Just a confused father." "Yes," Lisa agreed. "And also, I told him about all the times Jackson bullied other students, and not just me. Many of them finally decided to speak up." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "You know, until yesterday, I thought I would always be a victim, that people like Jackson would always dominate, and people like me would always be afraid. But you showed me that it's not true, that it's possible to resist, that you have to resist." Emma was touched. "Sometimes it only takes one person to start change," she said, recalling her conversation with Ryan the day before. "But it takes many to continue it." The days in Riverside turned into weeks. Jackson never returned to school. His father decided he needed a change of scenery and sent him to a military academy where discipline and clear rules would help him cope with his problems. Emma found her place at school, not as the girl who beat Jackson, but as a respected member of the community who wasn't afraid to stand up for what was right. She even started a small self-defense club where she taught basic techniques to those who wanted to learn how to protect themselves. One day, when the club had just finished its classes, Sheriff Miller approached her. "Sorry for the intrusion," he said. "I heard about your club and wanted to take a look." "How's Jackson?" Emma asked, wiping the sweat from her face with a towel. "Better," the sheriff smiled weakly. "The academy is doing him good. Strict rules, responsibility for his actions. Everything I couldn't teach him. He asked me to tell you his apologies." Emma raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Is it true?" "Yes," the sheriff nodded. "I think he's starting to realize what he's done. He's got a long way to go, but I believe he can handle it." He paused, then added, "You know, that day you stood up to him on the playground was the best day of his life, even though he doesn't realize it yet. Sometimes we have to fall to get back up." Emma thought about his words. "I hope he finds his way," she said sincerely. "Everyone should have a chance at redemption." "Everyone," the sheriff agreed. "And Emma, thank you for changing not only this school but my family. Sometimes it only takes one brave person to start a chain reaction." When the sheriff left, Emma stood in the empty gym, pondering the strange twists of fate. She'd come to this town hoping to start a new life by hiding a part of herself. And it was that part of herself, her strength, her skills, her willingness to fight for justice, that helped her find her true place. "Real strength isn't about being able to hit," she recalled her first coach saying. "It's about knowing when to stop, and using that strength to protect those who can't protect themselves." Emma smiled, looking out at the room where she had just taught others what she knew. Maybe that was her true calling, not to win in the ring, but to help others find their strength. And Riverside didn't feel like a strange city anymore. It had become her home, a place where she could be herself, completely without fear or doubt. And that was worth fighting for.